Hi and welcome to today's episode, which is going to be a batch cooking experiment where I see if it's possible to make baked orzo, freeze it, and still have the texture come out pretty good. I did a baked orzo several months ago, and it's been on my mind ever since because the texture of it was phenomenal. So I've been thinking, right, I'm going to do another one for myself. What am I going to put in there? This is the stuff I'm talking about. It's a very tiny little type of pasta. I think in the States it's called risotto. I had some time off over work over Christmas, and I'd made up a big batch of the chickpeas and a big batch of kind of ragu, meat ragu type thing to put in the freezer. And I've been thinking what else I can make in bulk and freeze. I'm gonna have a go at doing a huge batch of orzo and then freezing it and see if the texture is okay. My experience with freezing pasta is it goes very, very soft. I think it's gonna be worth trying. It's gonna be an interesting experiment, but I'm fully expecting non-optimal results. But I think it's worth a go. It's going to be a very simple, straightforward one, I think. I'm going to fry off onion, carrot and celery. Then I'll add the orzo in, then some white wine, and then a load of liquid. And then I'll bake that in the oven. I'm going to add in some roast mushrooms. So this is 400 grams of baby chestnut mushrooms. I chopped them down quarters or a bit smaller if needed. Olive oil, salt, pepper, and some dried thyme. And then a little sprinkle of Henderson's relish, which is like a vegan Worcester sauce alternative. I'm gonna air fry some vegan chicken. Those pieces are this brand. I cooked some for myself last week and the texture of it is just, oh, it's amazing. It's like chicken thigh, very chewy, lovely texture on it. And I think that's hopefully gonna stand up to freezing. And then I've also got some this bacon. Couldn't find the lardons, so I'm gonna have to get the strips and chop them down smaller. And then I've cooked off some frozen broad beans. So while everything's sorting itself out in the oven, I'll peel these. It's gonna be very simple flavors, but hopefully very tasty. Nice textures at least before it goes in the freezer. I'm gonna dice up 3 red onions. These are kind of medium-ish size. Use white if you've got them because they probably have a better flavor, like more punch to them. I'm gonna use this big casserole pot. So I'm just heating up about a tablespoon or so of olive oil. Take the sprout end off, cut it in half and peel it. I'm just going to make a series of vertical cuts and then a series of horizontal cuts. So I will throw the onion in, give it a stir to get everything coated. And I'm going to do this on 6, so it's kind of medium heat. And you might need a bit more oil because we're doing a fair amount of veg. Before I forget, I'm going to start preheating the oven to 180°C in a fan oven. That's about 350 Fahrenheit. You're going to want to go a bit higher if it's not a fan oven. Got 4 fairly large carrots, top and tail, and then into quarters. Fatter ones I'm going to do in 3, I think. Put the carrots in, and then lastly I'll do the celery. So I've got the remainder of a bunch there. I'm going to try and split this in half, just to break that down a bit, and I'll do the same, and then just chop that down. I'm going to use the leaves and everything. So now that I'm not splitting my attention quite as much, I can turn the temperature up a bit. I've now put it on 7. I'm going to put in like half a teaspoon of salt. I'm doing a fairly big batch. Really good grind of black pepper. About the same, probably half a teaspoon. And I'm just looking for these to start softening down, getting little bits of colour here and there. So I'll give that maybe 5 minutes and I'm going to start shelling the broad beans. I thought I had fresh garlic in the cupboard and I don't. I do have a smoked garlic. I've not had this one before, so I'm going to cut a little bit off, see how potent the smoking is. It's a little bit smoky, but it's not super powerful. And then the broad beans, so they've got this really thick peel on them, so I'm just going to squeeze the bright green bean out. If you've got nails, you can tear them. If you don't have nails, just stick the tip of a small knife in, create a split. So if you're a popaholic like me, it's a nice way of getting a fix. Alternatively, you could use something like edamame beans or peas, that kind of thing. The veg is sweated down nicely. It's got a kind of golden cast to it. So I'll add in the garlic. I did 4 of those big monster cloves. Fry this for a couple of minutes and then I'll chuck in the orzo. And I'm just boiling the kettle as well. I'm also going to chuck in the remainder of this pot of mixed herbs, which is about a teaspoon. We'll do about a half teaspoon or so of dried marjoram. Good dash of thyme, same about half a teaspoon. And I'm also going to use some stock cubes as well. It's a 500 gram box of the orzo. I'm going to use the whole lot. So dash that in. You can see it's very small little grains. Well, they're not grains, but you know what I mean. I don't know if this step is necessary, but I'm going to toast it off a little bit before adding any liquid. If you're making risotto, you toast the grains off a little bit. I can't remember why. I think it's partly for flavour. I'm not sure if it does something to the starch, maybe. I'm going to drop the temperature to 6, and then I'll let this fry for a couple of minutes just while I chop up my stock cubes. The orzo's been toasting for a couple of minutes, so now I'm going to add in the liquids. I'm going to use some extra dry vermouth, so I'm going to do like 400 mils. Then I've got 2 vegetable stock cubes, and I've kind of chopped them down just to make it easier for the stock to mix in with the water. The last orzo that I did, I used canned tomatoes and water, and then added more water later. So I've had to kind of guesstimate the amount of liquid to use. I think I'm going to use like 800 mils, and then I'll check it. So I'll pour that in. Give that a stir. I'm going to put the lid on, tuck it in the oven. I'm going to get those chicken pieces in the air fryer. I think I'll do like 170 maybe for 10 minutes. I'm going to stir them every few minutes. If I'd have thought about it more, I could have been baking that chicken in the oven while it was preheating. Oh well, once the chicken's done, I'll put the mushrooms in next. I don't think I said on the chicken, I put a bit of olive oil, salt, pepper and za'atar. It's a Middle Eastern herb blend. So it's things like oregano, thyme, whatever, and some sesame seeds. Just a really nice earthy kind of thing to have in the cupboard. I'm going to chop down the bacon. I am going to put the meaty bits in very close to the end. Vegan meat substitutes, they are very different in structure to meat, so they will not handle being cooked in liquid for a long amount of time. They'll really soften. They're a bit juicy, so I'm going to blot everything on paper towel. Use anything you like in this dish. Just because I'm using chicken and bacon doesn't mean you have to. You could do something like a chorizo, I guess chunks of vegan burger, that kind of thing. I think if I snip these in half, and then do bits like that. Yeah, and then I'm just heating up a frying pan. I'll fry these off for 5 to 7 minutes. There's all my little bacon pieces, so I'm going to get those in the pan. So I've been heating up just some sunflower oil for the bacon. And then I'll just fry these off until there's a bit of golden brownness, like a little bit of a crust on the outside. You could also use things like tofu, tempeh, anything you like really. Chicken pieces are all cooked off, looking nice and golden brown. So I've put the mushrooms in. Bacon is all fried off. I'm going to shunt that over onto the rear burner. Okay, so I need more water. I'm just going to have a little try. I think that's actually pretty close. So I'm just going to drizzle in small amounts until it's where I want it. I don't want to be over rigorous with the stirring, just because it's going to break down. So I've probably done an extra 200 mils by this point, so you could go ahead and put a litre in from the off. But that is looking pretty good, I think. Not sure how discernible it will be on camera, but the texture is very silky and creamy, and that is just the starch from the pasta. Mushrooms need another 5 minutes, maybe another 10. I'm gonna add in the broad beans, and I think I might put some cream cheese in here. It's very mild and sweet. I think a bit of cream cheese will just lift the flavour up a bit. If the supermarket had it, I would have used a garlic and herb one, or Borsan have released a vegan version. That would be delicious in here. It needs a bit more salt in my opinion, but the chicken's got salt on it, the mushrooms have got salt on it, the bacon's salty, so I'm going to hold off. But I will add a bit of pepper. I'm going to squeeze a bit of lemon juice in. I'm not looking for lemony flavour as such, I just want to brighten it up a little bit. I'm going to chuck the chicken in and the bacon. And I think it would tolerate, like happily tolerate more water or more stock or whatever. But effectively all I'm doing then is storing water in the fridge and freezer, which is pointless. So I think when it comes to reheating it, I'll just splash in a little bit more liquid. Mushrooms are all roasted and golden brown, so I'll scatter those in. All right, final flavour check. Yum. All right. Now that looks like a very delicious, comforting little bowl of food. That just looks like it's going to do me lots of good from the inside. Dive in. That texture from the pasta is amazing. It's really silky. I want to say luxury, that's just a really wanky way of saying it. But it's got like an amazing mouthfeel. And we've not put anything in there, it's just the pasta that's doing it. It's a really, really easy dish to make as well, perfect for beginners. If you're a bit worried about cooking, the only thing I'd say with this is keep your stove low. You know, don't take it above 5 if yours goes up to 9, for example. It will take you a bit longer to soften the veg, but there'll be very little risk of burning. I've had to push it away, otherwise you're just going to be watching me stand here and eat. There's lots of really great textures going off. Nice bite from the pasta. You can get some mild crunch from the carrots and celery. And then you've got that kind of meaty chew from the chicken and bacon pieces. Bellissima. I'm gonna have to wait to go to bed until everything's cool. Fortunately, it's cold in Leeds at the moment, so it shouldn't take too long. I'll get some in the freezer tonight. Today's Friday. I might publish video on Sunday, so I don't know if I'm gonna have enough time realistically to then, you know, work on the defrosting, reheating side of things. I'm gonna try reheating it in several different ways, so keep checking in on the pinned comment and I'll update the results there. For example, I'll do a portion, let it defrost in the fridge overnight, and then reheating it probably in the microwave, maybe on the stove, whichever. And then I'll try doing it from frozen in the microwave. If I'm doing it from frozen, I'll probably go low, but maybe medium. I think high, the problem you're gonna get is the outside's gonna start getting crispy and chewy, which we don't want. Whereas the medium and low, I think by utilizing those more gentle heats, it will help get the heat further and further into it before it starts drying the outside out. Like I mentioned, it could do with a bit more liquid, just to get it more kind of risotto, silky liquid almost. But why store water? So all I'll do when I actually come to reheat it is just splash in a bit more water or some stock, something like that. Putting the meat substitutes in there are gonna really bang the cost up. I'm not gonna dispute that. So you could get around that by buying one of the big XL blocks of tofu and then just season that up however you want it. I'd then cook it off in the air fryer or in the pan or in the oven, that kind of thing, just to get a nice bit of kind of skin, almost like a very light crust on the outside, because that will give you some nice texture in and amongst all of the other bits. So there are definitely cheaper ways of doing it than buying shop bought meat substitutes. I really want to get stuck into more orzo because it's amazing. So I'm going to grab a big bowl, sit and watch Designated Survivor. So all I need to do is say a great big hello and thank you to my community on Patreon. Patreon's a platform for creators, musicians, artists, all of that kind of thing. And it helps the public, as it were, give a little bit of financial support. In return, you get access to some bonus content and that kind of thing. I'll link to my Patreon down in the description. There's lots of different tiers, so you can choose whatever feels affordable for you. If you're on the hunt for lots more delicious plant-based easy recipes, like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you tap the bell icon, you'll get an alert as soon as I publish a new one. While you're waiting for the next one, have a look at this.